Now let's get into our discussion. Now, Nigerian workers are demanding the withdrawal of a bill that intends to take away the national minimum wage from the exclusive to the concurrent legislative list. Now, a few days ago, the House of Representatives introduced a bill sponsored by Honorable Garba Mohammed, which allows both the federal and state governments to negotiate the minimum wage with workers in line with the nation's federal system. This move spurred workers across the country to organize a nationwide protest demanding that the minimum wage be retained on the exclusive list. Now, workers through the Nigeria Labour Congress say that the bill is not in their favor, claiming that it is an attempt by some state governors and members of the National Assembly to shortchange them. That is part of our discussion right now. And we have joining us in the studio, public affairs analyst and a lawyer, Olayinka Daniels. It's nice to have you join me this morning.
Thank you for
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we also have a strategy consultant, Dikbo Iwole. Dikbo, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Right. Now, Olayinka, let me start with you here. We have often, Nigerians, been talking about the issue of decongesting the exclusive list, and say it is too much, it's becoming too heavy, and based on the realities on ground, the exclusive list needs to be decongested. And maybe the federal government has decided, okay, let's start with the minimum wage. Would you see this as that call to, or the answer to the call to decongest the exclusive list by removing the minimum wage from there?
Well, from my end, it's just a way of federal government trying to hide on their incompetence. You know, I'm going to see it that way because incompetence. Yeah, yeah, because there are we have 64 lists thereabout under that exclusive list. Now, the one that concerns an average Nigerian worker, the one that is not for the politicians, the one that is not for them. Now, that is the only one that the average Nigerian, a worker in Nigeria can say, okay, I benefit from. Now you want to shift the blame. This is still on the exclusive list. And we still have some states that are not even implementing it. We still have some states that are partially implementing it. We still have some states that feels that we can't afford it. Meanwhile, from councillor to the governor, cut across the 36 states, including FCT, earns the same salary. And no state,
irrespective of capacity of states.
Okay. And none of them have said that they can't afford it. But at this point, you want to move such, and don't forget, I won't mention this, but I can tell you that there are sponsors of this bill, which they are not even from the National Assembly. Some of these governors that feels that they cannot pay. Ordinarily, if we look at it both sides, yes, probably it should go to states because there are different states with capacities.
Yes.
To be fair, you can imagine what Lagos State will pay and what Yobe or Adamawa, Nasarawa will pay. No, we know that we have some states that are just civil service states that are not really generating anything as such. But then, this was a convention signed, agreed to. That was convention 26 of ILO, that is International Labour Organizations. So this is a global thing that was agreed. So if at all you need to even remove it from the exclusive list, then you must follow due process. I cannot employ you as an artisan, let's say a carpenter coming to fix something in my house, and he comes to fix whatever, and I just give him whatever I want to give him. No, there must be some negotiation. You must tell me how much you want to collect, then I will tell you what I can afford. Right. Then we agree.
We agree, and then we're in contract.
They have not done that.
Okay.
You can't just form a committee to look at such list of such magnitude and decide or think that, okay, we first reading, second reading. Was there any public hearing? The stakeholders, are they involved? Did you consult those people to even say you want to remove it from the exclusive list?
Okay. Dick, well, let me pick it from there and throw it to you now. The issue of consultation. The point there is, it is only logical that if I am going to discuss anything that concerns you, I should bring you on the table, and then we negotiate so that you can even, there are even some information that we will get from you one way or the other. I'm just using that as an analogy. Now, this idea of reducing or removing or expunging or decongesting the exclusive list using minimum wage as one of it, where the main stakeholders like the NLC, TUC organization, and all those organized labor were not necessarily consulted, because from them they say, well, we are not part of all of that leading to all of the protests. What do you make of something like that?
Well, I'll start from your question, saying that if you were to do something like that to me, you would need to consult me. But that would also imply that you respect me enough to do that. For me, I find it quite odd that you want to do something like that. The major stakeholders are not part of the conversation. So what that tells me is that it is not done in good faith. Because if it is to be done in good faith, you'd want to hear, we have to have conversation from both sides of the aisle. So I can hear your own grievances, I can hear things from your own side of the aisle.
And then even maybe by that, the government would be able to convince the organized labor why that has to be.
Exactly. So that just shows that the level of impunity we have in governance today is at an all-time high, and I don't know why it is so. But that being said, I think they're just being disingenuous and they're trying to be clever. Like you rightly said, the federal government is trying to be clever to say that, okay, you know what, so moving forward, when it comes to issues around minimum wage and then strikes and all, we are not involved. It is not on the exclusive list. So we're not involved. But I would say that it is a wrong place to start talking about the exclusive list and decongesting it, because I also find it quite humorous I found it humorous when the news came out, and I said, so we want to decentralize minimum wage. But when we talk about decentralizing our system of governance, you bring out your pitchforks. But you think that the minimum wage is where to start. So for me, I think it is all shades of insincerity, and it is quite unacceptable. But that being said, it is true that certain states can't afford certain things. But I believe that in 2021, we should be having a conversation around certain states being able to afford 30,000 naira. Okay, and I think this conversation should go beyond minimum wage to actual livable wage. Either way we like it or not. Since the minimum wage was raised to 30,000 naira, a lot of things have gone up in price. The essentials, rice, gari, beans, the price of a loaf of bread has gone up. So the question is, as at the time the minimum wage came to be 30,000 naira, are things still as affordable as that?
Price of fuel has gone up.
Price of fuel has gone up. Electricity has gone up, and people have to live on that.
House rents.
Oh no, you don't start with that. Don't start with that. So the question is actual livable wage. Can people actually live on this? So when certain governors say that, oh, we can't afford 30,000 naira, the question is, can you afford to pay your own salaries? Can you afford to pay the councillors? Can you afford to pay the local government chairman? Have you talked about cutting costs? Because for me, I find it quite questionable when you tell me an entire state of any nation, not just in Nigeria, okay? If you're saying you can't pay the equivalent of what 30,000 naira is, should you exist as a state? Not saying that maybe you're a commercial hub or not, but the question is, aside from federal allocation, are you telling me that as the chief executive of a state, that is all you have to live upon? No sense of innovation, no sense of productivity. You cannot say that you want to drive any form of innovation or any form of a revenue drive, or putting certain things in place to ensure that maybe one or two kinds of organizations even come in to pay certain taxes that will get to boost your revenue and start all of that. Because what we have is a lot of state governors in a lot of the parts of the country where they get seats on their own thumbs and then expect federal allocation to come, and then most of it goes into their salaries. These same governors will tell you that they have over 20 vehicles in their convoy. You can afford 20 vehicles in your convoy, but you cannot afford 30,000 naira. I think you are joking. So I would say that it should stay on the exclusive list, primarily because they are being disingenuous, and primarily because I believe that some folks are trying to be clever, and the governors are just trying to be very fraudulent about it.
But now, Olayinka, if I have to take it from there, we have often talked about the issue of cutting costs. Government, we recall when the president came in their first tenure in 2015, part of what they did at that time was to see how they can, cut some costs here and there at the National Assembly, and because we remember we're into a recession at that time, and there was issue of cutting costs. How much of that will help if governors and senators and government officials generally, from the councillor down to or up to the president, cutting costs of governance?
I think it's about the society we are in. We see a primitive society. We see a primitive set of people in the manner in which we do things, very uncivilized. For instance, I was on the bridge with Mr. Governor, and I saw the convoy, and I counted the cars, and I'm wondering, why do you need this number of cars? Just one person is going somewhere. Yes, maybe you need a few aids and all that. And don't forget, if you have like 15 cars going on one trip, you're going to fuel that 15 cars. And the way it works, every time they are going out, those 15 cars will have to be fuel. Now, that is some money. So if this can be reduced, maybe 5 cars, and you don't even have to fuel every day, because you move within Lagos, and when I fill my tank,
You don't hear it every day.
I mean,
It's the same vehicle.
it's the same vehicle.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that is just coming to the lowest proximity of cutting cost. But then you see somebody, a governor on a security vote, will still have a PA.
Yes.
For that particular, I mean, and I ask myself, I mean, what are these things? Are they necessary? If we cut costs, if we're really serious with governance, and we cut, it will go a long way. There's unnecessary bills, unnecessary funds that we spend it on nothing, and that's the truth. And how does this work? Some of these things that they do is just for them to be able to siphon funds.
Surely.
For nothing more but to siphon funds. Because seriously, you cannot pay 30,000. In America, Joe Biden just signed the minimum wage from, I think, from $12 to $15 per hour. Now, this is a global thing. Everybody is doing it. Now let's break it down. 30,000 naira. Let's break it down to an hour.
Please don't.
Please don't do somebody heartbreak.
But they to know how much we are earning as a citizen. So it's absurd. So at this point, we cannot afford it. We claim we cannot afford it. At some states, we claim. Yet, even the security votes alone, when you hear the figures, when you ask questions and you're saying you can't do this, and meanwhile, all of them, they still go to the central to plead, to collect money. And some of them, I remember the other time, Mr. Bello of Kogi was saying that yes, because the money that was coming from federal is not enough, there is a slash in the money, so of course I also have to slash salaries, or I can't afford to pay the 30, and the same man want to be president. I mean, all sorts, we see all sorts happening here. If they can agree, come to terms, if they are ready to serve, and they are patriots, they are really ready to serve, we will not be talking about I can't afford it or spending unnecessary funds and to beat your people. No, this is absurd. Then we should look at what is on our table. Don't even think about it. Thank God, at the second reading, it's been dropped. We had some, at least progressive members of the House of Assembly, that came to say, no, because they had to make them understand why you cannot remove it. Because this governor will abuse it.
Exactly.
If you put it on concurrent list, they will abuse it. Even on the exclusive list, they are supposed to be doing anything. So you don't put it, they'll just tell you, I can't afford it. I can't pay. Go and sleep. There's nothing I can do about it. So we need to put them in check. And we should just leave it there. It's even the least we want to talk about, because that is the only thing an average individual citizen enjoys under that exclusive list. Okay. So it shouldn't be what we are taking out now.
All right. Now that we're talking about the issue of states having the capacity or the inability or ability to pay minimum wage, where some are still struggling with the 18,000 to even keep up with being current with how much they're paying and how many months they've cleared and all of that. Some people are still agitating for new state creation one way or the other. I wonder what you make of that from that window. If we're struggling with the 36, okay, the states that are really viable on their own are very few. They're not more than 5 or 6. Others are struggling. Then there are others who are trying to keep afloat from the records that we see. What do you see?
So the question is, he wants new states for what objective? Okay, understanding that.
So that governance can be closer to the people.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Okay.
Isn't that the argument?
All right, no problem. So now you have a new state that will have a new state governor that will earn a very ridiculous salary. You have members of House of Assembly.
Dividends of democracy will be closer to newer people. That's the thing.
For me, I think it is an absence of priority when such conversations come, because I mean it isn't what we need right now. Have we been able to realistically manage and maximize what we have at this time? He cited an example of examples of Dubai and the US, and if you look at different economies of the world today, there's a huge drive for human capital. Okay, they're being very competitive about it. Some of them are relaxing their visa laws. The UK, that used to say that, okay, after a master's go back now, they're trying to mimic Canada and say that, okay, after a master's you can stay for 2-3 years.
Exactly.
So understanding that on the global scene, in the global market out there, what is the most competitive out there is human capital. And here in Nigeria, we're saying that we cannot effectively and efficiently and sustainably pay 30,000 naira. Are we really saying that we are playing sustainably in the same market? Can we really say that we can compete in a committee of nations? Because for me, I like to look at things both internally and externally. Because for me, our leaders, so when we keep saying that they don't have as much vision as we want them to have, that's saying that they have some. For me, areas like this shows that they are quite lacking in it a lot. Because I mean, it is quite obscene saying that less than $100, that is what people get in a month. And yes, I say we shouldn't break it down to hours, but I think we may end up having to do that, because for me it makes no sense whatsoever where you have people who are less than 3,000 people that earn or that take home more than 10% of our entire national budget of 200 million people. Does that make any sense whatsoever? So for me, I think that we need to have a huge and a serious rethink as to how we choose to be governed and as to how we choose to govern ourselves. Because for me, we cannot give what we do not have. And if we did not take our own destinies in our own hands to have these conversations and then come out like the NLC came out yesterday and other organizations came out to say that, you know what, this does not make sense, this is not sustainable. I think that we'll keep having these conversations and we'll keep going in circles and we find ourselves not going anywhere.
Okay. Now, Olayinka, the point is countries around Europe, some of the countries in Europe, seeing how their population is either stagnating for a very long time, or their population is aging, or their population is reducing, are trying to open up, like he was saying, you know, for people to come in, because when you have more population, it translates to bigger market, and bigger market translates to higher demand translates to more productivity, and then the economy rolls in like that. Nigeria has this naturally, and in fact we are struggling because if you look at UNICEF figures from the report we got on the first day of January 2020, Nigeria delivered about 25,000 babies on the first day of January. This year, we had about 22,000 babies just for one day. If you calculate that for the whole of the year, it tells you, you can jiggle the figures. Now, we have this population and a young one at that. How much of this are we taking advantage of? Or how much of this do we know we can take advantage of to make our country productive?
Well, from the look of things, if I say we are not even making an attempt, I will not be totally out of place. How do I mean? You're talking about populations that we have. How many refineries do we have in this country that is working? Now, tell me, if we have one working, do you know the number of people that will be employed to work there?
Yeah.
We take that out. What do we produce really in this country? The other time they shut the border, and I said, you people are not serious, because if you have what you are producing and you are taking out, you're not going to close the border. Now, we have the number, but we don't make use of the number, and we now have to live on some foreigners that will still come to our country to still make use of the number we have and enrich themselves. And that is what is happening. We are lazy people. the governors, even the presidency.
You
all
draw
of
my
us.
attention to that statement the president made sometime when he said Nigerian youths are lazy.
Not Nigerian youths.
Okay.
All of us, including Mr. President, including all the ministers, all the governors. Okay, look, for instance, look at the governors. Tell me one state in this country that don't have resources, natural resources that they can work on, or don't have something they can push out. But no, they rather go to the central and beg the central to give them money. And that's the reason why you cannot have true federalism in this country. Because rather than the central coming to you, you are going to the central. Because you are so lazy to even have foresight into what you can offer to do, to use these same people to get. That's the reason why they will talk about we can't afford it. That is the reason why we have so much employment, because nobody is even making attempt to make use of what we have. We have so much resources, even in human resources. Look at the numbers. So there's no how this number cannot translate to economic growth if we use it well. If we know what we are doing, where's the job? Where is the job? Because you see it every day. You're giving analysis of the new births, new babies coming in. Maybe I should remind you that they go to university every year, and we have graduates every year from different universities in this country. Now they come out every year. Where is the job? Now what they then tell us is all of us have to now be entrepreneurs. So all of us, we have to go and start job. Then when all of us start job, then who do we employ to carry out this assignment? It's absurd. It's sad because we have not looked inward. We have so much that we are not ready to. The other time I was in Namibia and they were moving their plant to South Africa for South Africa to refine and bring to them. Look at us. We have oil. We have resources, but we have to move it out. Why can't we do? Now the employment that we're supposed to give our people, we are giving them outside the shore of this country. Because when you take the oil out, people are working in the refineries that are changing this to bring back the fuel to give you the finished product. We are giving people employment in other nations. What is wrong with us? Why can't we give our own people
maybe by
this
the time,
employment?
By the time the almighty Dangote refinery starts working,
we should not rely on that Dangote refinery. Yes, going by the barrel and all that is going to produce fantastic, but it's not enough. How can a nation, a whole nation of this number, the giant of Africa, cannot boast of having working refineries that there is people or our people are working to earn ends with there? You see, if we only work with this number, I am telling you, Nigeria will not just be ruling Africa, but the world will be afraid of Nigeria. Look at us. We go to different countries and we make remarks. We go to different countries and they say Nigeria is this, Nigeria is that. They are doing well, they are doing great. And here, the same country, we can see it. We can see it because people have even lost hope. People have lost trust. So we don't have all that. Our leaders need to really sit down and rethink and make sure that, okay, if they are ready to make this country work, it will work with the numbers we have.
We've worked before. The First Republic was a productive, really highly productive, bracket of years for Nigeria. That everywhere Nigeria was prospering and everyone was looking forward or looking up to Nigeria at that time. But that has changed a little bit. But I guess we can get it back. Now, let's talk about the private sector versus the public sector in this instance. Now, despite all of this, what we have going for Nigeria, and everyone is so proud of, is still the ingenuity, the effort of private individuals, Nigerians who are working hard. You go to Yaba here. Yaba is seen as the mini Silicon Valley of Nigeria. If you go there, what young people or young minds are doing. People are coming up with ideas every day. The entertainment industry is self-made, and all of that. Now, how do we replicate what is going on in the private sector, in the public sector, if we have to learn from these two sectors within Nigeria?
So the public sector needs to be run like an actual business. In the UAE today, they have the Emirates, and it is headed by the Crown Prince as the chairman of the board and the CEO, not just chairman speaking English or their local language telling them what to do. he oversees the day-to-day operations of the entire organization. They didn't just have planes, they have all forms of subsidiaries. Until we treat the business of governance like an actual business, we'll keep having these challenges, unfortunately, in Nigeria. And for me, I think it is quite shameful that we have some folks that even come from the private sector get into the public sector, and then that culture somehow rubs off on them. The culture of low or no productivity, the culture of a lot of indiscipline, because I don't even know how we got to this level in terms of not just civil service, but in terms of governance. A couple of weeks ago, we're celebrating the life of Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, and I was on various platforms talking about his life. And we could all agree that at that time, the public sector worked. Civil service, it worked. They had some level of discipline that was quite admirable at the time. So the question is, how did we have a sharp decline from what we had then to what we have now? Now that we have a lot more access to information, a lot more access to technology, a lot more access to data. So the question is, what is really going on?
Capacity generally.
Right now. So I believe it's centered around values, but it's also centered around not being able to properly evaluate productivity as to what it should be. Because a lot of people go into governance today. I mean, you do next to nothing, and then you go home with humongous salaries and then bonuses and whatever comes on the side with it, not you actually earning it. So that dignity of labor, that sense of discipline that used to be there is no longer there. Somehow it has eroded over the last couple of decades. I don't know why or how that happened, but this is where we have found ourselves. So until the private sector, until governance is run like a proper business, we will keep having these challenges. And for me, like I keep saying, we have to be able to understand that we do not exist in a vacuum. Even on the nation, even on the continent of Africa, somehow we are falling behind. We have nations like Ghana, Uganda, Rwanda, South Africa leading the nation, leading the continent, I beg your pardon. And the question is, what is really going on with the so-called giant of Africa? What are we really doing in terms of seeing ourselves as having actual competitors, not just neighbors? We have to treat these other folks as competitors. That is why you have several nations of the world relaxing their visa rules, saying that, okay, you know what, these are the categories of people that we want to give permanent residencies. These are the people that we want to have come into our country so they can add value to us, so they can be productive within our system, not just to generate revenue, but to also give us a competitive edge in the Committee of Nations. Our leaders don't think along these lines. We think along the lines of what we can get, what we can share. If cows have more have more value than human life, and it is quite unfortunate that in 2021 we are still having that conversation right now.
All right, it's when one sits down to look at all of these things, you think back 4 or 5, maybe 3, 4 decades ago, and you saw how Nigeria prospered, how the life, the standard of living that time meant a lot. And you see it now, you begin to wonder. Some will say, well, it was military rule that changed everything. Others will give different reasons and all of that. But moving forward, because when we're talking about back to the original minimum wage issue that we're talking about, some are even saying we should go beyond the issue of minimum wage. We should be talking about the living wage. Because when you factor all of the realities into all of this, you discover that that's money is not even what the thing should be. The point is we should be talking about housing, we should be talking about transportation, we should be talking about health, education, and all of these things that make life, worth living. Shouldn't that be it?
Well, when you were talking, I was laughing because all this, you cannot talk about minimum wage when you don't have healthcare system.
Yeah.
You cannot talk about minimum wage when you have to fuel your generator to give you electricity. At the same time, you still pay for the same electricity that you do not have. We will not be talking about minimum wage when the school fees is going up and up and up and you can't afford it. You'll not be talking about minimum, because you see, I'm breaking this down. If you're saying minimum wage, and meanwhile, all these things are there, the food is rising every day. And we ask, How will they live on this? That average market woman doesn't even know about your 30,000 naira that you're taking. It's just, they've increased the money. So now the market...
Exactly.
We had what
there's
happened.
Money now. They just feel there's money now.
We heard what happened recently about the stoppage of trucks that are bringing food to the south. And we understand that at some point, because they couldn't bring the food to south, the ordinarily bucket of tomatoes or onions that they would sell at 35,000 naira, they were selling it at 8,000 and nobody could still buy at that rate. So if we have this, so something is wrong somewhere. There's no synergy anyway. Look at transportation. If you get to that road now, if it rains, I'm telling you, those bus drivers will come. Maybe they will go 100%, they will go 200%. Nobody is checkmating anybody, and our people will still have to bus and pay. And this apart now, let's break it down. Somebody is going to go to work, is going to, clothe himself to go to work, is going to pay his children's school fees, is going to buy food in the house, probably even eat at the office. And now tell me how then you're telling me people should not steal. You don't want them to steal, and you want public service, like you said, to work the way it should work. No, nothing will work if we don't fix the fundamental issues. If you don't fix, you see, there's a number of fundamental things we must fix first. Basic amenities we must provide for our people. Then we can talk about minimum wage. Right. And minimum wage, like you said, yes, well, that is what we have in the Constitution, because that is what was signed at the convention, yes, at the International Labour Organization. That was what was signed. We had options of picking day, we had options of picking weeks, we had option of picking month. We chose months. And if we had chosen that, I think we should not be comparing to say, after all, you hear some ministers, they will come and tell you, after all, we are earning 30,000 naira. Don't compare 30,000 naira and $15. You know, they are two different. And I ask, how will you do that? Sometimes they speak as if they have no vision. They speak as if they don't even know the reality in our own country. Then you want to compare us with some other countries that they are dealing with their own reality. So it is sad. Until some of these amenities are fixed, until government is taking responsibility for the one they are supposed to take responsibility for, then we can talk about minimum wage or living wage.
All right. We have to leave it here now. Thank you so much, Olainka Oladaniels, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And Dick Woyewole, thank you for coming as well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Right.